Second service. It is great to be with you all. I tell you, man, we just got done with the baby dedications. I'm supposed to officially switch gears and jump into the sermon, but I still got it fresh on my mind. I love it, man. Being a parent, you need to know, when I was graduating from high school, and I was getting ready to go into college and then ultimately even to grad school, being a parent really just wasn't on my radar. And it's funny how God brings you things that fulfill you in ways that you never expected. And so that's just it's a cool thing. I loved being a dad's a good thing. For sure it is. We are jumping in or continuing our series, When in Doubt. And today is Mother's Day, and I know that this can be a day of wonderful celebration for some and a day of difficulty for others. It is a day when we remember how great moms can be. It is a day when people who want to be moms struggle with the desire to do it and wonder why. It is a day when those that have lost their mothers that have gone on to be in heaven, of celebration and mourning. Mother's Day can be complicated in a lot of different ways. And so I just want to begin by celebrating the role of mother. The beautiful thing is, everybody in this room, at least I hope you have, who here has had a mom? If you've had a mom, raise your hand. Oh yeah, there's the joke. It landed. All right. We can celebrate the wonderful role of mother for sure. Lord, we do love you, and we come before you. I pray that I would do nothing more than make you famous today as we jump into this message. I ask by your grace, as we shift gears a little bit and we think about this whole idea of those that are in doubt. I know, God, that we've gone through seasons, all of us, everybody in this room at some point has gone through seasons where they've just doubted, how can this be real? Is it really real? I mean, sometimes the stories of the Bible seem too good to be true. Sometimes they seem too hard to understand. Sometimes they don't even seem to make sense. God, we have in our own lives gone through seasons where it's like, God, where are you? Why aren't you speaking to me? You feel absent. Lord, I pray that we would speak to those that are going through seasons of doubt. Lord, over the last couple of weeks, we've been speaking through the person that's been in doubt. Today we want to speak, Lord, how we can encourage those that are in seasons of doubt. Lord, it all belongs to you. Let me do nothing more than make you ever more famous and known. In your name, amen. One quick announcement, we're going to jump into this. Starting in June, I got it right. Last service, I got it wrong. Starting in June, we'll be jumping in. Summer's starting. We're jumping into 9 o'clock, 2 service times here. Did I get this right? June. Got it. Starting in June, 2 service times here. So 9 and 11 o'clock, moving into summer. And they'll be, so on the north side of Indianapolis, getting these right. And the East Fishers location will be at 10. So it'll be 9, 10, and 11 starting in June. Yes. What? Correct, I got it right. Last service, I butchered the whole thing. People aren't even going to come to church, who knows? But I got it right. So north side of Indianapolis, everything downtown is still the same. Down at Garfield Park, the ministries there are all going to operate at the same time. But on the north side of Indianapolis, it'll be 9 here, 10 there, and 11 here. So I'm excited for that. It'll be good. Rolling into summer, baby. Let's do it. Getting into this today. So today I want to spend a little bit of time. I want to do everything I can to kind of bolster this primary thought, and it's this. Trust and faith are formed in the heart more than the mind. Trust and faith are formed in the heart more than the mind. Now, I can't tell you how deeply I wish sometimes that this wasn't true. As a kid who grew up in an amazing home with great parents who are deep thinkers, as a kid who loves really nerdy stuff and logical thinking and apologetics, I wish all of my beliefs, sometimes I wish I could be like a Vulcan, right? Like I could just logically think stuff through and that my heart didn't mess with stuff sometimes. But the reality is, without a doubt, our hearts play a significant role in what we believe, more than we would even like to admit. How many here like to run? Oh, we got a couple that enjoy running. How many here run because you know it's good for you? Oh, we got a few more. How many here are like, I will never run unless it's to the fridge? All right, that's cool too. I love you all as well, right? Okay, so now here's the thing. When I graduated high school, I graduated almost 240 pounds, and I've ran my way down to about 190, 195. I kind of stay in that pocket. And so I do run just to be healthy. I want to be healthy. And as of late, I've been running with my dog. So I get out, I go running with my puppy. We went and bought her. She's sweet, love her to death. We were told she was going to be a boxer beagle mix, and instead we got this. And so she is really sweet, but if you can tell, she is not made for running. right? She is made for like lap sitting. I don't know. She's even pretty grumpy. I'm not sure. The other thing about her, Leia, so we have 2 sons and 2 daughters, and we got a dog. We had to figure out how to name her in a way that everybody was happy. So it's Princess Leia. It's a girl, Leia, but it's also Star Wars, so that's cool for the boys. Everybody was happy. So Princess Leia, little Leia here, I take her out on runs. Now, Leia was adopted. She was a rescue. She was probably mistreated. And she has grown up as a single child, an only dog in our home. So we don't have multiple dogs, we just have her. And she's kind of like a homeschooled puppy, for lack of a better way to say it. She's got social things. Now, I'm kidding, I do love homeschool stuff, that's great. I'm just picking on you because I love you. But in this dog, she has not learned the normal social etiquette for dog interactions. And we tried all kinds of stuff to help her with this. So, like if you're going on a walk with the dog, or I'm walking with her, and we come across another dog, appropriate social dog etiquette is, you raise your tails up, and then the dogs, they kind of do this like sniffing of each other as they go in circles, right? That's normal dog etiquette. Well, my dog didn't learn these social skills. And so what she does when another dog approaches her is she literally just collapses to the ground, tucks her ears, and pees on everything. Every time. Every time. Now, I have done everything that I can to help her break this, and it's really difficult when you're jogging. So if I'm going out and I'm on a run with her, and another dog is coming up, she literally just goes crazy. She's like pulling on the leash. She's up under my feet. I've actually tripped. A couple of years ago, I was running with her, and I tripped over her when she was going nuts and skinned my knees up really bad. I was mad at her. I'm like, what are you doing? My dog is not brave. She's not tough. She's just loud and leaks. That's it. But a year and a half ago, maybe almost 2 years ago, this all changed. And I tried everything to break her of this. I mean, I took her to like a dog, like one of those good dog kennels where they try to socialize the puppies. And honestly, it just went really bad. We ended up putting her on dog anxiety medication. The whole thing fell apart. I didn't even know that was a thing. So it's a thing. There's dog anxiety medication. So we had her on that for a while. We've done everything that we can to break her of all of these little weird issues. I was watching like the Caesar Malone or whatever his name is, the dog whisperer. Yeah, you guys ever seen the dog whisperer? I tried that stuff. That didn't work. That just made her more nervous. And so, nothing was beating this. So about a year and a half ago, I'm running with her again. I had had a really long, frustrating day. It was the noon hour, and I was like, I got to decompress. So I went home, got the dog, hooked her on the leash, took off on a run just to decompress from a frustrating day. As I'm running, I get about a mile and a half into the jog, and she starts going nuts. I mean, pulling on the leash, up under my feet. I'm stepping over, and I know there's got to be another dog somewhere coming along. So I turn around and I look, and about 100 yards off, maybe not quite 100 yards off, this huge dog had broken free from its owner and was making a beeline for us. And so I'm watching this thing close the gap fast, 90 yards, 80 yards, coming in hot. I mean, this is like war zone, or I don't know what's going to happen. My dog is going bananas. I mean, like a weasel all over the place. I'm jumping over, trying to stop it, and I'm already frustrated. It's been a long day, so this is a little bit of confession. Here's what I did. I know this is going to be online. It's recorded in front of all you people, all these services. Here it is. I actually stepped in front of my little puppy, in front of her, and as the dog was coming in, she was about 15 yards off at the time. I mean, really loud, really intense. I go, no! I mean, super strong, intense to that other dog in front of me. And truth be told, I was mad enough and frustrated enough. If that dog would have come in closer, I would have honestly laid it out, man. It was going down. I'm not going to mess with my little puppy, not messing with me, not today. So all kinds of intensity. I was game on. I was not doing this today. Now, to my amazement, this big dog tucks down, hits the brakes, tail goes down, whips around, and runs right back to its owner. So as it's going back to its owner. Now, have you ever had those moments where you kind of freak out about something and you don't realize how big and how loud and intense you were until after it was over? I had one of those moments. So I turn around and I look, and the owner's like, I'm so sorry. The dog is back at her, at the owner, yelling from, 80, 90 yards off. The other people in the park are looking at me. I mean, it's like everybody is just locked into what is this crazy gangly guy going to do? I looked down, and my puppy was like Velcro right on my leg, just looking up at me too. And so I kind of was like down, I'm okay, everybody's okay. And I took off and I started jogging again. Now, something changed that day. From then on out, every time I run with my dog, she doesn't pull, she doesn't freak out, she just runs right by me. We go by big dogs walking on the path right next to us. And Leia, head held high, goes right by, no fear anymore. And it dawned on me, somewhere in that little puppy's mind, it clicked. I'm safe. I'm safe. Like, it doesn't matter what comes my way. That big guy that gets me in trouble is going to destroy anything that gets in the way of me or puts me in danger. I'm safe. And I can now jog with her. Now, if we're walking, she'll still pull and do her dog stuff that she usually does. But if we're running, man, we can go past him. She'll go right by me, doesn't pull on the leash. She is so much better because something inside her clicked. It wasn't all the education, the dog schooling stuff. It wasn't taking her to the place where they do the dog socialization. It wasn't Caesar and the books, and I even borrowed books from people trying to learn to do it. It was none of that stuff worked as well as I wish it would have. But something inside her clicked, and she is truly convinced I'm safe. So here it is. Trust and faith are formed in the heart more than the mind. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, that's a dog. I mean, that doesn't work for people, right? Like, we're intellectual, and we are guided by our mind. I mean, we're like pre-Vulcans. It's going to happen one day. We're going to get to that spot where all logic is going to lead us. I don't think it's just lower life forms that operate a lot by emotion, too. One of my favorite authors and thinkers, Dr. William Lane Craig. Anybody here ever read William Lane Craig stuff? A couple of people. I like him. He's an apologist, so he goes and defends the gospel. He's written a whole bunch of books. I've recommended him to a lot of people that are wrestling with faith, what they believe and why they believe it. Dr. Craig goes to university, Ivy League schools, debates faith with some of the most brilliant people on the planet. Over and over again, Craig is just a great guy, man, a great author, thinker, a little bit of a philosopher sprinkled in there too. And he makes this statement. So what'll happen, and he's shared this, I've heard it multiple times, like even in interviews with him on podcasts. He will spend time with people that he's debating. So like in the debate, everybody's going back and forth. How can there be a good God if there's evil in the world? What do we do about the age of the universe? How do we handle, what about a multiverse? All this back and forth, going back and forth in these debates. And the truth is, there are brilliant people that are Christians. So when people make statements like Christianity is just antiquated, it's old-fashioned. Do you realize the creator, the founder of the Human Genome Project that like decoded or is working on decoding our DNA, he's a passionate Christian? Do you realize that Hugh Ross, one of the leading astrophysicists in our world today, theoretical physics, this guy is a passionate Christian? Do you realize that our church, our campuses are full of lawyers and doctors, all these people, man, college professors with PhDs that absolutely think that it's totally reasonable and most reasonable to agree that a God began all of this stuff. It is not foolish to be a Christian. And the assumption that it is silly. And Dr. Craig talks about after these long or hot debates with people over faith, he says what it really comes down to is people don't reject Christianity most of the time because of intellectual reasons. They do so because something happened in their life. And then they look to defend a predisposed emotional feeling that they have, so that's why they search through the evidence. In fact, Craig makes this statement. I think that most people who reject God because of the evil in the world, he's specifically talking about evil in the world in this context, but this idea holds true for a lot of his statements. I think that most people who reject God because of evil in the world don't really do so because of intellectual difficulties. Rather, it's an emotional problem. And I find this to be true even for me when I sit down with people. So it's like, not always, but most of the time when I sit down with people that have rejected God or rejected Christianity, it goes something like this. When I was a kid, my mom died of cancer. And at that point, I knew there couldn't be a good God in this world. And then they start looking for all the reasons why God shouldn't exist or can't exist. It begins with, if there was a good God, why would things like tornadoes and hurricanes and why all of the evil that appears starving people all around the world, we have people en masse, terrible things happening to them. If God really existed, that wouldn't be there. It's an emotional thought that leads them to start trying to defend their rejection of Christianity. With this in mind, I want to go to the text today. Trust and faith are formed in the heart more than the mind. Acts 16:25-34. We are driven by our hearts more than we would like to admit. We are driven by our hearts way more than we would like to admit. Acts 16:25 through 34 says this: About midnight, Paul and Silas were praying and singing hymns to God. And the prisoners were listening to them, and suddenly there was a great earthquake, so that the foundations of the prison were shaken. And immediately the doors were opened and everyone's bonds were unfastened. When the jailer woke and saw that the prison doors were open, he drew his sword and was about to kill himself, supposing that the prisoners had escaped. But Paul cried with a loud voice, "Do not harm yourself, for we are all here." And the jailer called for lights and rushed in, and trembling with fear, he fell before Paul and Silas. Then he brought them out and said, "Sirs, what must we do to be saved?" And they said, "Believe in the Lord Jesus, and you will be saved, you and your household." And they spoke the word of the Lord to him and to all who were in the house. And he took them the same hour of the night and washed their wounds. And he was baptized at once, he and all his family. Then he brought them up into his house and set food before them, and he rejoiced along with his entire household that he had believed in God. May God add his blessing to the reading of his word. A couple of things from this that are important to point out. Why? Let's ask a contextual question. Why were Paul and Silas put in prison? The book of Acts, where this story is recorded, is literally the Acts of the Apostles, so the activity of the missionaries. This is a story of missions journeys where the first kind of church initiation, launch of the church, the first missionaries are sent out, and this is stories about what happened where they went. And this is a story of one specific situation. Now, what's happening in this text is Paul and Silas, as they're going from town to town proclaiming the word of God, literally doing missions work in the book of Acts, the Acts of the Apostles, they come into this town, and in this town there is a young girl. In fact, when I read this, it reminds me of like the Destiny Rescue girls. The girls at our church, the missions organizations our church has teamed up with to rescue these girls and stop sex slave trade around the world. These people that are in captivity and abused. That's what pops in my mind. And there's this young girl, she is demon-possessed and she is a slave. And as Paul and Silas walk into town, this demon-possessed slave little girl looks up, and the demon recognizes Paul and Silas and starts pointing it out, like, that's who they are, they're doing this stuff, right? And it so throws off the missions work that Paul stops, looks at this little girl, and basically exorcises the demon from her. Now, the accidental side piece of this is her owners were making tons of money off her. She was operating kind of as like a fortune teller. And this little girl that was demon-possessed was telling people things about them that people shouldn't have known, and people were paying money to get advice. And so when they brought this demon out of this little girl, she lost her monetary worth to her owners. This made them angry. They reported it, and that's why Paul and Silas were arrested. In a prison, Greco-Roman world, it would have been most likely cold, not literally cold like outside cold, but like nothing soft or comforting. Rock, maybe even a cave, depending on how modern this community was in that they were in. Definitely like a rock or solid floor. They would have been chained. It was dark enough they would not have even seen each other, so maybe even totally dark by the time night comes. Imagine being chained in the dark in a cold room with nothing. An earthquake hits. This earthquake shakes it. The prison doors pop open. Their chains come off. And let's start getting into this. In the earthquake, I think it's important to note that God almost always tends to do very miraculous things through somewhat common activities. See, in that time, in history, in that day and age, even now, earthquakes aren't that uncommon. And God often likes to use things that are somewhat common to do really extraordinary things. And I think often, even for us as believers, we tend to dismiss things when it's like a near miss, like we were almost in an accident, or something clearly almost took place, or man, maybe God was in this, or we got a little bit of a bonus and we didn't plan on it. I mean, God loves to use somewhat normal things to do extraordinary events. And I would say, first of all, don't dismiss when a somewhat ordinary thing happens that maybe looks like it was a touch of God's hand, because oftentimes it really might be. The second thing that I would say is this. There is an earthquake, right? So it's quite common. The jailer was going to kill himself. It's important to understand the significance of this. In that world, at that time, so Greco-Roman world, soldiers, and not just soldiers, but a lot of people that were involved in the socio-political system of that day with Rome, they literally gave their life to the mission or job that was set before them. Can you imagine if your boss was to walk in and be like, here's the task at hand, and by the way, if you don't do this, I'm going to kill you. I tell you what, people would try a lot harder at their work. And maybe if not kill you, I will at least shame you publicly and maybe even physically beat you if you don't do your job well. So Roman soldiers, when the job that was given to them at hand, they literally had to follow through with risk of massive punishment, if not even execution. So there is only success. It's like success or death, or success or massive shame. There really is no middle ground. See, you have to realize that the power of Rome, really, the social power of Rome was not primarily in its size, though it was massive and sprawled out and growing incredibly, right? It was not so much its size. The power of Rome was in its resolve. I mean, when you became an intricate part of that system, right, even if it's one of the many, like just a soldier, the resolve that they put into those people is, do my job, give everything to it, and if I fail, I lose everything. It's all on the line. That massive resolve is what made Rome so incredibly powerful. So this soldier, when he becomes aware that this earthquake hits, and in this somewhat normal event, the doors happen to pop open, the chains happen to pop off. He thinks that he is going to be seen as failing at his job, that they've all escaped. He hears the sound, Paul in the background say, we're still here. It floors him. They bring light. Literally, the text says they bring light into the room that is darkened. He sees all the prisoners. Nobody has ran away. He is so moved by this event that he literally trembling falls to his knees and he asks, how can I, basically what he's asking is, how can I have what you have? What is he talking about? What is the have that these guys have that he doesn't have? When you think of the might of Rome, you think of the power of Rome, you think of the strength of Roman resolve, and then you find a man longing for something different. What happened in that dark, cold cell was a display of relentless love, willing to put everything on the line to show care for a jailer. And I know, even when I say this, it doesn't click in our minds because we don't understand the risk. We don't understand the weight of it. We're too lost in our modern perspective of society where literally you can jump from job to job and it doesn't matter. You don't even have to try. And if you totally fall apart, then you can get stuff from the government. I mean, there's always a way out here. That wasn't true then. And these guys had a means to get away and they choose to stay and face the resolve of Rome. The prisoners choose to stay and face the resolve of Rome, that the jailer might taste love. Now this is crazy. This man was not won by intellectual rhetoric, but by real people showing really powerful love. This man was not won by intellectual rhetoric. That's not bad, but that's not why he was won. He was won by real people showing really powerful love. Maybe another way to say it would be like this. The jailer converts. Why? Because Paul and Silas are stronger than Rome? No. I mean, not in a military sense, not in a number of people sense. That's not why he switches. That's not why he puts his trust in this. It's because they beat him in an intellectual argument. I mean, were Paul and Silas debating him late into the night? Nope, that's not why he converted. He converted because they showed big, risky love and care. Trust and faith are formed in the heart more than the mind. I mean, we've talked about this over and over and over again. The legs in which take the gospel, that brought it from just a few people following Jesus to hundreds, right, to thousands, to ultimately millions, and then even billions of people that have taken it so far beyond Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, to the ends of the earth, literally. The legs that have made this happen have been massive gestures of huge charitable love, and then telling people what the name of that love is. It's literally charity gospel. That is the mechanism that took the gospel around the world and has led billions of people to the feet of Jesus. It is big, massive displays of love and showing people or telling people the name of it. I'm going to invite Josh up, and I'm going to pull these all together, these ideas together. I've been reading a book. Kevin Myers is the author. It's called Grown Up Faith, and he makes this statement. This is good. Trust is an intellectual choice. It really is. The mind is involved. I'm not dismissing the mind. It is absolutely an essential piece of it. But it is also an emotional one. It really is. And we believe that we are always victims of our emotions. But the real statement is, it's a posture of the heart. When we trust people, we lean into them. And what he's saying is not just even leaning into other individuals. He's talking about literally leaning into God. I trust God. I lean into Him. To all of those that have rejected God, I mean, just be honest with yourself. You rejected God, at least in part, because there is evil in the world and you don't like it. And why would a good God allow that? There's tons of apologetics on this. I can send you in so many directions. You've wrestled with your faith or walked into seasons of doubt because a loved one has passed away, and it feels like, man, if God was really loving and really caring, He wouldn't allow this to happen. You've rejected God or struggled with your faith because you've come in touch with other people who call themselves Christian, but they don't act like Christ. In fact, if you study the Ten Commandments through Jewish scholars, they teach that taking the Lord's name in vain is not cussing. Now, I'm not saying to cuss, but it's not cussing. Taking the Lord's name in vain has nothing to do with cussing. To original Jewish authors and thinkers at that day and age when they wrote that, to take the Lord's name in vain literally meant to do things that were against the nature of God under the name of God. So I'm going to do something really evil and say, God told me to do it. That's taking the Lord's name in vain. And maybe you've rejected Christianity because you have experienced the hurt of others that have taken the Lord's name in vain. I'm not talking about cussing. I'm talking about the original meaning of it, not the new meaning we've put into it. You've been around people that have done really painful things, and somehow it got tied into the name of Christ. I want to pause for a moment, and I want you just to realize your heart is involved in this. Your heart is involved. Your desire to reject, your desire to find reasons to reject, your desire to walk into it, your heart is involved in this. Now, all I would ask is that you would take that awareness that your heart is involved, that the world is broken, that there are hard places in it, that you have lost loved ones, that the system is not operating as it should. Take that awareness, which in and of itself is powerful, but I'm not going to go down that train today. I want you to take all of that. If you have been hurt by people taking the Lord's name in vain, I want you to take all that hurt, and all I ask is that you throw it all at the foot of the cross and look also with your heart to what God was willing to do to speak back to us. And pause for a moment. Yes, it's broken, but God didn't abandon us in this brokenness. He didn't say, oh, you messed it up, adios, good luck with life. He didn't abandon us. He comes back into this mess, and He lets us while we are still sinners. He doesn't just come to try to save the people that He likes or like Him. He literally comes while we are still yet sinners, the Scripture says, and He lets Himself be beat, be abused, his blood poured out, dies on a cross that we might taste and see relentless, never give up, everything that I could possibly offer, demonstrated love. And let the emotional hurt from people that did it wrong, all I ask is that you pour it at the feet of Jesus, because he carries that love into those very painful places. There is no dark spot in your heart. There is no dark spot in your life, in your experiences, that he is not willing to go. Because of big, massive, relentless love. You see, here's the thing. We don't like it, but it's true. Trust and faith are formed in the heart even more than the mind. They're solidified in the mind, but they're initially begun often in the heart. It's Mother's Day. It is a day of joy for some, pain for others. Some people grew up in really hard homes. I was blessed to have parents that really loved Jesus. I mean, yes, I love apologetics. Yes, I love school. I love learning. I love reading. Grad school was great. Love it all. But when I think of the love of God, let me share with you some of the things that I have seen. Maybe you haven't seen them, but let me share with you what I have seen. Maybe let me inspire you to demonstrate this kind of love in your areas of influence. As a young kid, I remember my parents opening up their home to people in need. Thanksgiving meals, they would always invite people over that attended the church that we went to, that were like college students that couldn't get home, or people or older people that have lost a loved one, we always had people at our house. I can't tell you how many times we would have Christmas morning and there'd be people there that I hardly knew. I remember as a kid coming home one day. I mean, I'm probably like 6 years old. I mean, this is like 35 years ago or more. I'm like 5 or 6 years old. I remember walking in the house and there was a baby in our home. And I remember thinking, this is one of my earliest memories. I remember thinking, what's that? And I remember my parents telling me, well, there's been some legal confusion and the baby didn't have a place to stay and we don't know how long he's going to be with us. But no orphan goes without a home. So we had another kid in our home for a while. It was awesome. Had a little brother, another little brother. I already had one. I got another little brother for a little while. And then it got worked out and he ended up going and being adopted. I mean, I have so many memories of broken families showing up and my parents talking with them in our living room. I have so many memories of my parents giving massive amounts. I mean, I remember one of my memories is as a kid, I remember even young adult age, my dad basically got a hold of us kids and he was like, hey, I want you to know we're not going to give presents this year. We're going to give to those in greatest of need. And so, like, we literally got a cow for Christmas that we gave to poor people in foreign countries. I have so many examples of massive, big steps of love that I watched happen in my home over and over and over and over again. And I'm here to tell you, yes, there are people that use the Lord's name in vain. Yes, there are people that get it wrong. But when people really do taste and see how good the relentless love of Jesus is, even in that prison, the jailer, when the chains break free and his life is on the line, he tastes the relentless, passionate love through Paul and Silas. And this guy lets go of Rome being his primary driver and embraces Jesus because of big steps of love. I'm going to talk to two groups of people today. One, if you are not a believer, if you're watching online, if you're sitting in one of our services, and you have been hurt because of things in the past, because of people that have used the Lord's name in vain. Listen, by the way, that's a deep sin in the Bible. The actual meaning of using the Lord's name in vain. if you recognize the brokenness of the world, you've lost a loved one, you've tasted the pain of it, all I ask is that you also look at the relentless love of Jesus. If you've wandered, let today be the day you rededicate your life. If you've never chosen him, let today be the day that you choose him. The second group I want to talk to are people that call themselves Christian. It's time that we start displaying incredible, significant, massive gestures of love. Stop living in fear and scarcity. You call yourself Christian, but you walk as if Christ isn't involved in your life. Listen, it is time for us to start stepping out in massive gestures of love that even risk something. And it's in those huge gestures of love that people can see the real work, and it begins so often in the heart. In fact, listen, if you are a Christian, I am going to pray for you. I want to pray for you today that God would open up your heart. Fill you with his Spirit. Lord Jesus, even now let your Spirit wash over this room. Awaken a hunger in us to be displaying agents of your love, to do crazy things that are beyond, where only you can fulfill it, only you can keep us safe, only you can make it happen. We have to stop living in so much fear that you are not present. If you would, grab the Next Steps card. They're in the back of the chair in front of you. Everybody get the Next Steps cards out. You cannot just sit in a service. You have to ask the question, what does this mean for me today? I am not here to entertain you. This is not primarily a seeker-sensitive church. I care so much more about raising up an army of people that do their very best to honor Jesus. We gather together to equip the saints for works of service. We want to get back to the original mission of the church. So get the Next Steps card out. And I'd ask, put your hand on it. Just put your hand on this, and I want to pray with you. Before you fill it out, I want to pray with you. Get the Next Steps card out. Put your hand on it. I want to pray with you. Go ahead and bow your heads. For those that are Christians, and you are willing to pray that God would awaken a greater level of love, I just want you to pray after me. Lord, raise my ability to love. Weaken fear in my mind and heart. Grant me courage. Lord, let the starving in this world find food because of your love in me. Lord, let the lonely find friends because of your love in me. Lord, let the orphan find a home because of your love in me. Lord, let the widow not sit alone at home because of your love in me. Let me find wealth and resources, not for my benefit, but that I might show even more love. Let me walk in generosity because of your love in me. Let my family see the love of God in me because of your love in me. Trust and faith are formed in the heart more than the mind. from that ancient, cold, dark prison to my home and neighborhood. Let your love be found in me. Right now, before you finish praying, I just want to ask, if you are a Christian, if you need to accept Christ, mark it on the card. If you need to rededicate your life, mark it on the card. We want to follow up with you. Put your name on it. We want to follow up with you. We want to help you grow. If you are a Christian, I would ask that right now, before you quit this moment in prayer, that God would put on your heart a name, somebody, a person that He's calling you to show crazy love to. Pray that He would change your heart from fear and scarcity to faithfulness. Spend some time in prayer before the Lord. Write on the card. Reflect. Don't just listen to the sermon. Write it out. What is He speaking on your heart? Write it on the card. Reflect on it. Go. Spend time before God.
We just want to thank you so much for joining us online. If God's working in your heart, we would love to hear from you. Go to www.encountertrinity.com and make sure to look up our information and send us a message. We want to know what God's doing in your heart. We want you to know that you are loved by God and absolutely have a purpose.